Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. My name is Leah Jones, and I am the Education Coordinator here at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. Before we get started today, I'd like to do a brief land acknowledgement. While we are on a video call and many of us are joining in from different places, we want to remind ourselves that we gather on the unceded land of the indigenous peoples. I am joining in from so-called Richmond, Virginia, and I am currently located on the land of the Powhatan and the Chickahominy peoples. If you are unsure whose land you are on and would like to find out, you can visit native-land.ca to find out. So thank you all at home for tuning in for another episode this week. Happy holidays to everyone. As you all know, the year is winding down, which means we are quickly approaching the 2022 General Assembly session. Beginning January 12th, next year, Virginia legislators will convene for the General Assembly, where laws are changed and created for the Commonwealth of Virginia. This is always an exciting time and opportunity to make meaningful changes in the lives of our neighbors. Hopefully, this session we can pass legislation to strengthen laws protecting the health of all Virginian residents and the environment to maintain and improve our quality of life. Today, we wanted to share with you all a couple of bills that we will be leading on in the upcoming session to address utility disconnection and shutoff protections. To help walk through the details of these policies, we have one of our coalition members, Emily Piontek from Appalachian Voices, and VAIPL's own Kidest Gebre. Hi, y'all. How are you doing today?
Hi, Leah. I'm doing good. I'm excited to be back on the show. How are you, Emily?
I'm great. Hi, Leah. I lost my screen for a moment there, but yeah. Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem. I do that all the time. Thanks for being here today, y'all. I'm excited to share with everyone more about the policies that we've been working on and we are leading on this upcoming session. So just to get us started, could you all just share a bit more about the policy and share a bit more about what utility disconnection protection is?
Yeah, thanks, Leah. And I can start. So we have two policies that we're working on with two goals. So one is to improve the existing protections from utility disconnections that we have in Virginia, but those are very limited protections. So we are working to expand those and to make them applicable to more customers, to more households. And then we have a second set of policies that would be new to Virginia, but are modeled after policies that are in many other states, including many in the Southeast. And these would offer protections for people who are at risk of losing their water, their gas, or the electricity services during really hot periods of the year, very cold periods of the year, or during just extreme weather events such as a heat advisory or a freeze warning or a winter storm warning or things like that. And so I mentioned that these policies are modeled after policies in other states. And basically, disconnection protections ensure that people who are struggling to pay their bills can have a bit of a delay before they lose services while they try to get onto a payment plan with their utility if they're not already, or try to get some federal or state funding to help them pay their high bills. And so offers a bit of a delay, as well as just limits service termination. So limits the ability of the utility to shut off their electricity, their gas, or their water when it could be very dangerous for the utility to do so. So, if it's 90 some degrees and it's a really hot day and someone could really suffer if they were to lose their power that day, these policies would tell the utility, no, you can't turn someone's heat off when it's above a certain temperature or below a certain temperature, so that people are not vulnerable and can find additional resources to help them while they're struggling. So Kidest, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add here, but that's kind of a broad overview of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think you summarized it pretty well, Emily. And a part of these bills is making sure that folks do not lose access to utilities. And we wanted to make sure utilities is expanded to just energy and water, but also gas, as well as waste water management, right? So we really are aiming to not only start a protection for extreme weathers and extreme events and then states of emergency, but expand the medical exemptions that folks get currently, which is really not really realistic when you think about really over. Especially over the times that we've had with COVID, folks have been getting sicker for longer periods of time. So we wanted to expand that time with an additional of 30 days, I believe.
Yeah, so I could just offer a little bit more information on that part as well, because I kind of skipped over it in my introduction to the policies. But I mentioned that there are some very limited disconnection protections that are in place in Virginia. And so what we do have is the ability for someone who has a serious medical condition. They can go to their doctor and they can ask the doctor to fill out this form that certifies that they have a serious medical condition. And this could include a number of things. It's sort of up to the discretion of the physician. And then a person is able to provide this form to a very limited number of utility types. And then the utility will offer a month delay. So about one billing cycle delay in service termination while that person with the medical condition tries to secure more resources to help pay their bill down and ensure that they still have service. And so we, number one, want to make sure that all utilities in Virginia allow people with serious medical conditions this delay in service termination, because right now, as I mentioned, it's just a few types of electric utilities and public water utilities that are required to offer this. And then secondly, we would like to expand the type of customer household who is eligible to seek a delay under this clause to people who have infants in the home or very young children in the home, to households where there are elderly residents, and also to households where there are people with disabilities. And this is really important because, people who are very young or very old can be very vulnerable to the loss of power, the loss of water, and people with serious medical conditions can as well. We rely on our refrigerators to keep medicines cold, or you need power to keep your medical devices plugged in. So just making sure that more utilities accept the serious medical condition form and that more people can seek a similar exemption.
I think that sounds great. I think for folks watching at home, though, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, but I know when we present this policy, these new policies to other folks, they may not initially see the glitz and glamour of utilities, or I guess the importance of utilities. It's not the, I guess, sexiest thing to talk about. However, it's important, right? We use them every day. Just to be clear, we are talking about gas, electric, and water utilities. And you all already touched on this just a little bit, but could you share a little bit more about why policies like this that provide utility disconnection protection are so important? How could this policy really affect the lives? These policies really affect the lives of Virginia families. What makes this special?
Yeah, thanks, Leah. I can start this off. And, just starting off broad, right? According to a recent report from the American Council for Energy Efficient Economy, the ACEEE, the triple E's, 25% of Americans pay more than 6% of their income on energy bills. And this is even before COVID-19 pandemic hit. And of those people, 13% pay more than 10% of their income on energy bills. And nationally, 67% of low income households face a higher energy burden. And those households, 60% and of those households, 60% have severe energy burdens. So this is an injustice. It's not just spread evenly across the country. The same report found that the energy burden in southern states like Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Virginia are the highest in the nation, being 30% above any other region. So Virginians currently pay the sixth highest energy bills in the country, and Virginia households have more costly energy burden than the national average as well. So thinking of electricity burden, it is unaffordable for over 75% of Virginian households based on the federal energy burden standards. And moreover, if you will think about it as a justice issue, there's a connection between energy burden and energy insecurity with race and socioeconomic status, particularly for Black households. They are the most impacted by energy burdens and other utility hardships. Black households are 3 times more likely to experience a utility service shutoff than non-Blacks, and that's 15% versus 4%. So understanding that high energy burdens disproportionately impact low-income families with children, and these are Black and Latinx and Native American communities and our senior citizens, right? And climate change we've seen the impacts of climate change in Virginia with floods and extreme heat weathers. So that will also exacerbate the existing energy burden and utility hardship for low-income families. And in the same breath, right, Virginia currently has among the weakest utility disconnection protections for customers of any state in the South and the Southeast, right? And I'm pretty sure Emily will dive deeper, but North Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, Georgia, Mississippi, and even Alabama have each their own protection for low-income customers by prohibiting utility disconnection during certain months and during extreme weather. Virginia does not have this protection, and this bill will definitely put us with the rest of the states in our region to offer protection for our vulnerable communities and populations. And when you think about the times that we're in, at the time of COVID, utility shutoffs often generate adverse health effects and can be contributing factor to homelessness, as well as a lot of health effects like during the heat of the summer. And if you have no air and no conditioning, you have spoiled food all times of the year, as well as just living in the dark, right? And no water and with no running water. So when you think about utility scarcity and then really thinking about utility shutoff burden, it really becomes a matter of having good quality of life, living a good life. And so for a lot of Virginians, this bill would improve their quality of life, and it would bring back some dignity in their life where they don't have to worry about paying a lot of their bills on utilities, and they will, have some dignity of living with cool air and heating during the upcoming colder months.
Yeah, thanks, Kidest. I think there's a couple things that you hit on that I think are really worth emphasizing here. And number one, with those high energy burdens that you were talking about, when people are faced with really high light bills and really high water bills, they often have to make really hard choices. So are they going to be able to pay their rent that month? Are they going to be able to buy the food, good quality, healthy food that they need? Are they going to be able to pay for their medications, or are they going to pay their light bills or their water bills? And sometimes people have to make hard choices, and then maybe the light bill or the water bill isn't the most important bill to that person that month, and so then they start to get behind, and then utilities threaten to shut their light off, to shut their water off. And so that's just kind of what it can mean for a family to have a really high energy burden. And so then kind of bringing it back to how this is going to affect Virginians, we've been seeing in the news over the past couple of months. You all will remember that Governor Northam enacted a moratorium on utility shutoffs because of COVID. But that moratorium expired for most utilities this fall. So, we've been seeing in the news notices from utilities that they're going to start resuming disconnections. For example, the Western Virginia Water Authority in Roanoke announced that they'll resume disconnections this fall, and they've begun to do so. The city of Danville Utilities, so that's water and electricity, has also started disconnecting customers who haven't been able to pay their debts, haven't been able to get on a payment plan. And then we've had announcements from other utilities that they're going to start raising rates. So Virginia American Water, for example, that's in Eastern Virginia, they're going to start raising rates. So if a family is already suffering from a high energy bill or a high water bill, struggling overall, that could really impact their ability to stay in good standing with their utility and continue to access their water. Harrisonburg Electric Commission Appalachian Power and Old Dominion Power in the southwestern portion of the state have sought rate increases as well. And so that's partly due to the rising cost of natural gas, which is going to be another problem for low-income households this fall. We've seen the cost of natural gas increase by about 30%. And so again, that's just going to exacerbate the energy burdens that people in Virginia are facing and make it even more likely that people will struggle to pay their bills. And so even more critical that we do pass these really important disconnection protections so that people can seek some delays in service termination and can try to get some help, get on a payment plan or something like that with their utility.
Definitely. I know you all have made some really obvious points, right, about how like these are very important policies to consider. We use our utilities every day. As you guys have already spoken to, I'm hearing basically that utilities are more than just services, right? They can really contribute to the structure of how we operate, how we operate in our day-to-day lives. Whether we will make the decision to pay our bills or have food on our table, or be able to pay for a roof over your head, or pay the electric bill or the water bill. And Emily, you listed already so many people, or so many areas, I guess, rather, utilities that will be resuming payment, has ended their moratorium. We know for a fact that there are still tons of people probably in debt to these same utility services. And COVID is still a global crisis. We heard just recently a new variant once again. So it's no secret that COVID will continue to be a problem, right? That in addition to now we're entering the winter season, and on top of all of that, also the climate crisis will only continue to worsen, right? Which means we only have more instances of extreme weather, higher temperatures in the summer, which means maybe higher need to use AC, higher energy bills, but also now in the winter we have colder temperatures, can have lower temperatures as well than we're used to experiencing, which once again presents another real problem for folks throughout the year. We see popping up over and over again. So power shutoffs ultimately can be a matter of life or death, especially at a time like this of global crisis. So although bills like this, policies like this, we can see how important they are for folks' day-to-day lives. What are some pushback that we're expecting on policies like this? What do we feel like people could say to go against utility disconnection protections?
Yeah, so I think, I've been encouraged because as we've spoken to legislators about these policies, we've heard from both Republicans and Democrats in the Virginia General Assembly that they're supportive of this. And so that's really exciting because, again, I think people across the political spectrum recognize that these can be a matter of life or death for some people. And, as you mentioned, I think Kidest, there are many states in the South and Southeast that have Republican legislatures who have been supportive of things like this. So, I think I have some hope there. I do expect that we will receive pushback from utilities who will worry about their ability to kind of cover the cost of customers who are seeking a delay in service termination. But I think that there are opportunities for utilities to use novel payment plans, basing payment plans on the percentage of household income that someone has. And so trying to figure out a way to find an affordable payment plan for them. There are state and federal programs that people can try to tap into to get some assistance. And then there's also sort of longer term approaches like energy efficiency measures that utilities could implement to help people reduce their bills. So I think that the utilities will push back and worry about the costs, but I don't think that should limit us because I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to think really creatively about how we can address those concerns. I think there will also be concerns about free riders, so saying that people are going to be using these policies as a way to get around paying their power bill. But I want to be clear that these policies won't allow someone to do that because they don't extend indefinitely. And so it's going to be in the best interest of customers to work with the utility to find a payment plan that works for them, to try to figure out how to bring their bills down and get up to date. It basically would just protect people from losing power at really critical times. And so I think we can counter the free rider argument pretty easily as well.
And to add to, the pushback from utilities, I'm really, being optimistic and hopeful that we don't have that, and that because, we're working on bills that are, it's not an indefinite of protections, right? These are during times of crisis, and a lot of these crises are, related to climate change, like we've said before, and like we have clearly, explained. But if you really do think about it, right, utilities are a massive and overlooked contributor to the climate emergency. While oil and gas, get more attention for their role in the causing climate change, the electric industry is also a part of that problem, right? Utilities were responsible for 32% of U.S. Greenhouse gas emissions in 2020, and these come from mostly gas and coal burning plants. And the biggest utilities operate their own fossil fuel infrastructure to supply, these power plants, right? And at the same time, the profits over people collection practice that they have now, also put more harm onto the poor communities and communities of color that are already suffering disproportionate harm from climate change and energy burden and utility burden. So when you think about the responsibility of utilities to create these type of protection, I'm hoping that they will work with us to really enact these protections over these extreme weather events related to climate change, and also to really protect the vulnerable communities and our vulnerable populations here in Virginia that are, their sites and their communities are sites for a lot of polluting projects. So protecting those communities is essential, and I'm hoping our utilities definitely see that and then recognize that this is a bill that is in the benefits of the people and the customers, so they can keep paying and be a part of their service and not really just lose money.
Yes, definitely. I think you all have made really great points about how we may see some pushback from our own utilities, especially in the scenario of being worried about free riders, as you said, Emily, folks trying to get by on utilities. But I don't think utilities are really anything that folks can really escape. You need them every day to live. So your utility bill is always going to be there. And as Emily, you stated, we've already the policies that we are presenting don't really make it possible for that to happen. It's more so about providing patience, providing grace, being able to recognize that we are humans, right? Who need these services, that are essential to our human dignity, our quality of life, right? And it is, I feel like, the responsibility of our government utilities to have that patience and grace, especially in times like these of crisis and high stress, when things are especially not normal, right? So I am looking forward also to the support that we can build around this, and folks hopefully learning more about this effort. So if you all have any resources for people to share at home, would you all, or to use at home to learn more about this, would you all like to share how people can show their support and also learn more?
Yeah, definitely. And first, Leah, I really love that framing of that these policies provide an opportunity to show patience and to show grace as people, who are struggling to stay on their feet. It's just kind of pressing pause on the loss of these services and giving them time to get themselves together. So thank you for that. As far as resources, there's a really great report. It's a few years old now, but it's been a great resource for anyone who's looking to get a little deeper into these disconnection protections and trying to understand what's going on. It's called Lights Out in the Cold. NAACP published it a few years ago, and the link is up here on the screen, and hopefully we can share that out as well. It's wonderful. Shows kind of what other states are doing and would help provide some ideas for what Virginia could do in addition to maybe what we're proposing here. And then in terms of showing your support, as we get closer to the General Assembly, we will hopefully get bill numbers on these policies. And so stay tuned for that, because once we have bill numbers, that's an excellent opportunity for you to be able to go to your elected representatives, to your state delegate, to your state senator, and ask them to support these bills. And the General Assembly starts on January 12th, I think. So we have a little bit of time, but those will be coming. And then additionally, kind of on that line, we'll be doing lobbying days this spring during the General Assembly session. So staying tuned for information about that, maybe joining us in Richmond so you can meet with your elected official in person and ask them to support these policies as well. And then finally, another thing I'll suggest is, consider writing a letter to the editor in your local paper. So if you know that water disconnections, gas disconnections, or electricity disconnections are happening in your area, write to your paper, explain the problem, encourage people to support these policies, and just call for more protection, more grace for people who are struggling to get on their feet. A few ideas for me, so I'll turn it over to Kidest, because I know she's got some more.
Yeah, I also wanted to give whoever's watching, the folks that will watch later, something to kind of a quick read to really understand, the larger image of how folks have been experiencing utility shut-offs during the pandemic, and how, we really are using the COVID-19 pandemic as an example of a moment of crisis for this bill. And so this reading will, which I'm going to put in the chat real quick, well, not in the chat, in the comments real quick, we'll really explain and put in context, the crisis that happened for a lot of families during the COVID pandemic, as they're trying to pay their utility bills, as well as making the connection to the bailouts that a lot of utility companies received as part of the CARES Act, and how a lot of the money did not go towards protecting customers. So, and this, hopefully as you're reading this, you really will understand why we need protections and this, these bills to become a law and laws, because they really will help bridge in the gap of needing to protect our customers and our vulnerable population from really bad practices that we have as under our utility services. And Leah, do you want to share a couple of our events that are upcoming? That'll be cool.
Yes, absolutely. We're starting to wind down now. So just a couple of other resources and ways to show your support, a few actions you all can take it home with your networks and communities. Tomorrow we are hosting our first General Assembly kickoff to discuss what will be, what to expect in this year's GA, and then also the priorities, including our policies on utility disconnection protections. We'll be sharing more about those. So please register at the link here on the screen for our webinar happening this Saturday at 10 a.m. If you aren't, however, able to make our first webinar, our first preview this Saturday, we will be hosting another preview the first week of January, January 5th at 6:30 p.m. So please register to attend that session as well and share with your communities. Lastly, as we continue to build momentum up to GA and during GA, you, along with your community, can take action with us at Day for All People, where we'll be hosting a couple of workshops as well. Once again, talking about utility disconnection protections, as well as some of our other priorities in this coming session. So please share, check out these resources, check out these links, share them with your communities, spread the word about utility disconnections. And if you would like to learn more, and keep track with us, stay up to date with us, you can always join our supporters list by clicking on and registering at this link that we're having on the screen right now, right here to join us. And you can also always tune in to our episodes next week for our next episode of Environmental Justice Now. Yes, thank you both so much for joining today, Kidest and Emily. Once again, it's been great. We talked about utility disconnections, and I know we'll be continuing to talk about utility disconnections for the next few months. So everyone, please be on the lookout, as we stated earlier, for more of what's to come, bill numbers, and more about how you can take action in the coming months. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you. Bye.